Hi, my name is Bree Foreman. I am one of the pastors at Networks Church, and I just wanted to share a little bit about an experience that I had with the Lord. So for me personally, I have been a Christian my whole life. So I grew up in a Christian home, and that's kind of all I ever knew. And so I lived my life just as a pastor's kid. So I had a lot of head knowledge. But it actually wasn't until I felt the call of God to go to ministry school in California. So I set off and I was obedient to the call of God, and I went to this school. And it wasn't really until I was in school where I had an encounter that really changed my life, and God became real in my life. And it wasn't this journey of, okay, this is what my parents believe, but this became really real for me. And so I started doing this walk with the Lord that was for me, not just to make my parents happy or my siblings happy, but this was a decision that was purely my decision. And so one day in school, we were in a class full of 1,200 students, and the pastor there said, lay hands on one another, and I just want you to pray for each other. And so my friend, my housemate at the time, she laid her hand on me and she started praying for me, and I felt this intense burn come through her hand onto my back where her hand was. And it got so intense to the point that I turned over and was like, ow! I was like, I just felt the fire of God on my back. And after she finished praying, I just said, can I feel your hands? Like, are they hot? And they weren't. They just felt like normal flesh hands. And that's when I knew that the fire of God, the power of God really touched me. And that night, I went home and I spoke to my housemate, and she's like, well, why don't you just check your back and see if there's a mark? And so when I looked in the mirror and saw the mark on my back, there was a physical red mark from like 4 fingers that you could see. And in that moment, I just knew that God was really real. Like, there is no physical hand from anything that can really actually make a physical mark and burn like that day. That moment. And so for me, that's when I was like, okay, there is no denying that there is a God, and He is real, and He wants to show up in your life and in your world and encounter you just like He encountered me. And I know that so often we hear these stories, these supernatural stories, that sometimes are a little bit hard to believe, but I'm here today to tell you that God is real and that He wants to encounter you exactly like He wanted to encounter me. And it doesn't have to look a certain way. Like, we shouldn't be putting God in a box, but you just have to say, hey God, I want that too, and I want you to show up in my world in a very real and a very tangible way, and He will. And so that was one of many encounters that year for me personally, and I could go on, but that was probably the most dramatic encounter that I had with the Lord. And my prayer and my heart for you is that you would encounter Him in a very real, tangible way, because that's His heart for you as well.